Turning the corner once again, firing on all cylinders. Union Smack is back right here, going retro again. You got both the lads, myself and Matt, are in the house. Like I said, I'm not alone. Matt, what's going on, man? Where can everyone catch you? All the goodness, how you been?
Let's move on now. I'm being busy and overworked. You can find me on Twitter at PerfectTent. You can buy our official merchandise, the official Union Smack shirt, Reset button shirt, Hibiki TMD shirt, Union Smack Hall of Fame shirt, and the Tenant Talk shirt from our online shop, unionsmack.bigcartel.com. And very shortly, hopefully by the end of the year, but if not early 2020, you'll be able to buy my next book, NXT UK Year 1, which is currently going through a heavy edit when I don't have to work right now.
And there you have it. You got all the bullet points in. Matt, I don't think our listeners ever appreciate either. Like, we always talk like an hour off air before this. How weird and hard it is to do sometimes, just to bring up an intro out of nowhere after you're already kind of burnt out talking. But we do it every single week, and you're a master at it. Tip of the hat.
Thank you very much. We're pros, Travis. Let no one ever say any different.
And your omnibus review just dropped, 62 through 65. NXT UK, guys, check it out on the channel, on demand. All that stuff Matt said, as always, on Twitter, at the Hibiki TMD. You know the drill. That red button down below. Goddamn it, hit it for all the goodness, retro gaming and pro wrestling. Matt, we're getting seasonal. Christmas is upon us, as you know, the listeners and viewers can tell from the thumbnail. It's brisk outside, everyone's bundled up, and what better way to sit back by the fire with your loved ones and fire up around here on our Retro Alley. Once again, Matt, this time kind of untraveled territory. We're taking a real throwback, one of the old Survivor Series, one of my favorites as a kid, 88.
Yeah, and our first Survivor Series on the channel in 2 years, Travis. I think we've done every major pay-per-view apart from Survivor Series, maybe WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But we'll get to WrestleMania in April. But yeah, Survivor Series 88 from the Richmond Coliseum, and like I said to you off air, I hadn't seen this for 18 years, and my God, have we been missing out on some stuff.
I tell you what, first and foremost, I loved every second of watching this. It was such a nostalgic throwback. I hadn't watched this in a while. It's always a flood of just being a kid. I felt like I should be eating a bowl of cereal. It's sitting Indian style on my living room floor while watching this. So I loved having that feeling viewing this.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I said to you, off air, I've been burned out on wrestling recently. It's been a chore to watch, but obviously the nostalgic stuff is still always a pleasure. And going back to 1988, well, I don't think I loved this as much as you did, but I certainly didn't hate it.
Yeah. It was fun. It was a fun show to watch for the most part, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, most of the matches that we'll get to were well-paced and had something to them. I think, only the main event, which we'll get to in a minute, was sort of a letdown. But, it was Hulk Hogan in 1988, so what can you expect?
Let's hop in our little DeLoreans. Let's take a trip back. This was one of the peak times for this company, 1988. This was about a year and a half off the heels of WrestleMania 3, one of their biggest shows of all time. This was also a time where Hogan was kind of tiptoeing into the waters of Hollywood and going out, and that's essentially why the belt was put on Savage at a tournament, because Hogan was going off to film No Holds Barred, and he was hoping to springboard that into other roles, which aren't classics by any means. But at this time, they were kind of going with, for their house show routes, Team A and Team B. And Team B, Matt, especially during 87, was always headlined by Randy Savage and someone with Savage's babyface. He was always kind of like, to equate it to younger, listeners, listen to this, Randy Orton, John Cena. Cena's always been a little bit on bigger level than Randy Orton, mainstream-wise, but Orton was always enough there to, get some asses in the seats.
Yeah, and so all through this time, even watching it back now, you still always got the sense that Hogan was the main star, but Savage was carrying the company as best he could until they could, shoehorn Hogan back into either a main event match or a role that mattered.
Exactly. And by this time, the end of 88, I'm pretty sure everything was wrapped up with No Holds Barred, which was drop around spring 89.
Yeah. We had Zeus at the 89 Survivor Series, did we not?
That is a whole other rabbit hole we're going to go down, hopefully, in a future show. But no, this was the Mega Powers were formed in SummerSlam '88. It was kind of like the first surge of, okay, Hogan's back, pal. Now they had the Mega Powers explode angle planned out for the entire year. That was the end game. From all the stories I've heard and you've heard, Matt, that was the end game. So this was all mapped out, and that's the difference between this company back then and now. I think first and foremost, one of the biggest detriments now is they don't plan ahead this much. They hotshot shit too much.
Oh yeah, there's no forward thinking. It's like when you take a look at how long and how detailed, like, the Mega Powers story, it went from WrestleMania 4 all the way through 88, through the first part of 89 until WrestleMania. It was a year-long story that, fans invested in because the time and care was put into it by the company. And it was like two men that you really love, and you can see one is gonna turn. The seeds have been planted months and months ago, and it's just, well, we're gonna keep watching to see when he's gonna turn. We don't know when he is, but we're sure he is. And even though there was that sort of predictability that Savage will always turn at some point, it's like, I need to see when and how.
And that was another thing, too, about this time and this show. Not just Hogan and Savage. And we talked about this off air before we hit that record. Pretty much every single guy had a story on these teams going into this. Every match on this, even the tag one, there was backstory and shit to work with on here, as opposed to elimination match for no reason, which has no heat behind it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if you look at the Survivor Series these days, there's very, very few storylines going into it apart from brand supremacy.
Exactly.
But like you say here, everyone from Jake Roberts to the Powers of Pain, all had a story. Even Honky Tonk Man and the Ultimate Warrior, and it was. I don't know. I think watching this, Travis, before we get into the matches, it's like watching every match and seeing he's got a story against him. So there's them two team captains, building for either the Royal Rumble in '89 or WrestleMania 5, and then the under guys who might not have been very important to the audience, but still, a lot of them had a story going into it with someone on the opposite team. It was just like, so much care has been put into this, even in '88, and there's a lot of creativity as well, not just storyline wise. I'm talking about the way people were eliminated from matches to save face and keep them strong, etc. And so
Bad News Brown
didn't have to pin. Yeah, Bad News Brown. So heel didn't have to pin babyface or vice versa, which would have killed the end payoff in a singles match. It was just, there's so much creativity flowing through this show, and it's just how far we've fallen. It's sad.
But let's kick into it. Let's not get sad thinking about modern brand supremacy, dumbass bullshit. Let's get into the goodness. This kicked off from Richfield. This is the second ever Survivor Series. Richfield, Ohio. Suburb of Cleveland, as Jesse Ventura would say throughout this, and the first Survivor Series show. Same arena, same town, the first two Survivor Series. Kind of that WrestleMania 4, WrestleMania 5 thing going. This show, and the crowd was red hot for the first Survivor Series and for this. I feel like, but for both of those shows, the tag match is kind of when, well, it didn't help. It was hard to fucking see, but that's when the crowd was kind of just cooled off. But other than that, the crowd was behind pretty much everything.
Yeah, it was. And do you know what I missed, Travis? I know this was maybe a year, 2 years before they brought it in, but like Survivor Series team names.
Right. Well, this was the only one with co-captains ever, wasn't it?
I think it was. Was it 90? I think it might have been 90 where they had the winners or the sole survivors from each match go into...
Can I do it?
Go on.
The grand finale match of survival. Yeah.
There we go.
I missed that too, and I wish that would have been a consistent thing they brought every year. Any excuse to get Tito Santana in the main event is fine by me.
But yeah, I mean, team names and a nice little twist like everyone advanced, or the winners advance into the final team. That made it, and I know we're not reviewing that, but 2 seconds, it's like, that made it unpredictable as well, because as a kid, it was like, you could end up with 10 on 1 here.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll get to 90 next year. That's one of my favorites, just because of the grand finale match of survival. Can't stop saying that. It's so hyped saying that sentence. Anyway, this kicked off, and that's the biggest detriment to these shows, Matt. I feel like for any era, is that so much talent is
Cool.
on these shows. Some of these teams are a little questionable, to say the least. Some of the members on it.
Yeah. It's just some of them are just thrown together to get people on the show, but
There's a guy we're about to say
yeah.
on this team I didn't know was still even employed. So,
Go on. Which
well,
one?
this kicked off with the feud, the IC title feud, the new champ from SummerSlam 88, Ultimate Warrior, co-captain Brutus Beefcake with their team. Oh boy, the Blue Blazer, Sam Houston, and Jim Brunzell. And that's the guy I meant. I had no clue Jim Brunzell was even with the company still. Taking on co-captains, Honky Tonk Man. I think Greg Valentine was the other co-captain. Bad News Brown, Danny Davis, and the Outlaw, Ron Bass. My God, the eclectic group just in this match alone, Matt. Take it away.
Yeah. I mean, do you know what? I'm going to leave everybody other than Sam Houston to begin with because I don't remember too much about Sam Houston. Whether I've just forgot or I actually never saw a lot of him. You know, around 87 to 91, was he? 92? Before he left for WCW. But,
Something.
like, watching him here, I was like, do you know what? If they'd have put the machine behind him, and he'd have had a really good technical heel like Greg Valentine to work with in a long drawn out feud, he could have been a solid, IC babyface.
And fun fact, a lot of people don't know he's the younger half brother of Jake the Snake Roberts, as was
Yeah.
Rockin' Robin, the sister of Jake Roberts. Sam Houston was kind of nepotism at its finest. He was in Mid South before this, and a couple interviews I've read. The problem was the Greg Gagne effect with Houston, Vince, and like Bill Watts. Promoters always thought he was kind of too little and scrawny, especially in that cowboy role. When you look on the other end of guys like Stan Hansen at the time. But I feel
Yeah.
like he was fine. He seemed like a good hand. I feel like had they let him gotten seasoned and matured more, he could have been, my God, Intercontinental title program. He reminded me of a possible Kevin or Kerry Von Erich, maybe potential.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking when I was watching this. Like, he's selling. I mean, he didn't get a lot of time, obviously. What did this clock in at? 17, 18 minutes?
17 minutes and
Around that.
50 seconds is your official time.
Well, there you go. So yeah, he didn't get a great amount of time to shine or anything, but I think had he done, we could have seen the birth of a new babyface here because I backed him from selling alone, and like I said, give him someone like Valentine, let him learn on the road and throughout the years, and you've got yourself a brand new babyface, but that obviously didn't happen.
Of course, we all know the 10-second match with Honky Tonk Man and the Warrior at Survivor Series, or at SummerSlam, excuse me, when Warrior won the belt, which is why we're here now. They never really progressed their angle. I feel like this killed the angle after this. Was the blow off with those two?
Yeah. I mean, I felt like after Warrior beat Honky Tonk anyway, that was the end of that.
Right.
I don't think, even, today watching it back, I don't feel like Honky Tonk Man was ever a serious mid-card intercontinental title guy after he lost the belt.
Right. No, he wasn't.
Maybe it was like time moved on and, other people had moved up around him, but it just felt like you'd done Honky Tonk Man.
Well, they were starting to get into the era where they had seasoned, Kurt Hennig, Bret Hart into those roles, and he wasn't needed.
Yeah, and obviously you had Rick Rude as well there, and it was just like, all these people are so much better than Honky Tonk Man.
Yeah. Well, they wasted no time in getting the weakest link out of there. Danny Davis eliminated in like a minute 18 seconds by the sleeper.
Yeah, that was that done, and then, I enjoyed. You'll never hear me say this ever again, Travis. So, lap it up when you go. I enjoyed Brutus Beefcake in this match.
You know what? I've always defended Beefcake because I feel like he was always over. Always over. And people, Brutus the fucking Barber, Conrad Thompson, all those guys, it's become like this Ed Leslie just cult joke thing. No, he wasn't dog shit in the ring. He knew enough to put on something sustainable, and with the right guy sometimes, he had some good matches. Call me crazy.
I mean, I'm not going to go that far and say he had, like, good matches. I can't remember and I'm thinking back and back, but I can't remember a Brutus Beefcake match I've ever sat down and watched and thought, do you know what, that was a really good match.
It took 3 other guys, but his best match was WrestleMania 2 with him and him and Valentine versus the Bulldogs. That's his best match.
Because he had the Bulldogs and Valentine to help cover.
Exactly.
But here I thought, like, you know, obviously he wasn't the focus of the match. He could tag in, he could tag out. Yeah, there were other storylines to play out here. His little tete-a-tete with Greg Valentine, that could be, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say it could be the most capable I've ever seen him in a ring. It's like, it was short, it was snappy, it was well put together, it was technically very good. He didn't look like, you know, he was looking for what came next, and I wish I'd have seen more of this Brutus Beefcake during my childhood, because I might have been a bigger fan of him then.
We'll get to Beefcake down the line. We got to talk about stripeless Jim Brunzell real quick, who was eliminated next by Bad News Brown in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
For no reason, let's say it, this was just a body to fill in the role. You would think, though, for the IC title program Survivor's Tag match, they would have taken someone from one of the Jake teams. Maybe, I mean, they were trying like hell to build Scott Casey, I guess, to swap those two out, maybe.
God.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get to Scott Casey in a minute. Not that I'm a big fan, but...
Tito Santana. Swap him out with Tito Santana.
Yeah, he could have done that. But, I mean, Jim Brunzell, he was nothing. Let's be honest, he was nothing without the Killer Bees gimmick.
No.
He was never going to make it. At least for me. I mean, you might... And, yeah, the listeners might disagree, but he was never going to make it as a single star, ever, in WWF.
And Matt, was it just me, or, you know, during the ring introductions, after they all run down with the Warrior, it looked like Jim Brunzell would rather be anywhere else than in Richfield, Ohio.
And do you know what? I had, honestly, seen this for 18 years. I had to look up on Wikipedia who he actually, not who he was, but who the other member of this team was, and it turned out to be Jim Brunzell. Because I couldn't hear Howard Finkel during the introduction. And I'm looking at the screen, and obviously, I don't know about your network, but on my telly, it sort of cut it off down the sides to make it a bit, you know, more HD.
Yeah.
But I'm looking, I'm thinking, that can't be one of the Killer Bees, surely. And so on Wikipedia looking it up, is it? And it fucking was as well.
In his all-American, for no reason, tie-dye undies. I guess he just drug him out of his closet from the 70s and threw him on for this. We talked about Bad News Brown. He did this in 89, too, the exact same way. He had the lone wolf gimmick. At this time, he was being pushed pretty strong, like in a feud with Randy Savage. They were thinking, but they never really pulled the trigger on, because he won the Battle Royal at Mania 4, and, you know, they were, I don't know why either, because he was a terrible wrestler.
Yeah, I mean, do you know, I never really hated Bad News Brown. He was always an effective heel, and obviously watching it as a child back then, he was scary enough to make me believe he could seriously injure one of, you know, the baby faces. But I don't know, he was never WWF Championship material. You know,
No.
Despite what else he won, you know, elsewhere. I'm not even going to go as far as saying I'd like to see him in a serious, you know, 6-month program with Savage, because I don't think he would have got better. I think he was one of them wrestlers who did it his way, wasn't willing to learn any different, or at least at a main event level, and would have probably pissed Randy Savage off at some point, to the point where Savage went to Vince McMahon and said, just give me anyone else other than him.
I'm surprised, because I don't think they ever had a match either. See, what I would have done, they could have just booked a solid house show route, just headlining him and Hogan. Like, Bad News Brown, I feel like that could have been, like, the top of the ceiling, the highest he ever could have gotten. Just that role that Earthquake had at, like, SummerSlam 90, right? It wasn't for a belt, but the storyline was strong enough where I was like, damn, I feel like he was a better Hogan heel than a Savage heel for sure. Because DiBiase, when I think of a Savage heel to work at the time, it's a worker, you know?
Yeah.
Rick Rude, DiBiase, guys like that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you had to have someone who could go with Savage, you know, because Savage was a very physical worker, you know, very technical, and I think someone like Bad News Brown would have hindered Randy Savage. I'm sure they had house show matches. I mean, I did some research for something a few years ago, and I'm sure they had 1 or 2 live event matches around the country, but I don't. Did this ever transpire on to Saturday night's main event? I don't recall it.
I don't think so either.
No. I think this fizzled out before it had a chance to
Yeah.
do proper damage.
You would think, by the way this was booked too, how he didn't get pinned and just walked out. Maybe they were building to him and the Warrior for the belt, but no, they went Rick Rude at like Rumble 89 times. So.
Oh God, can you imagine Warrior versus Bad News Brown?
Ooh.
I mean, Warrior versus
I mean, we've both lived through Andre and the Warriors.
Seconds,
we've both lived through Andre and the Warrior. I think we could survive that.
But I mean, that would be pushing it seriously. It's like, dear God, imagine that and they're booked in like an 18-minute. Oh,
it's not
now I'm having flashbacks to Warrior versus Papa Shango.
Oh my God. It's not getting any prettier because now it's that time to get really sad and talk about squander potential. The Blue Blazer, I feel like, would have been booked a little farther on in this match. He still went like 12 minutes, but I feel like defeated by Greg Valentine, maybe it should have been Honky to maybe have it be the captain. Because if I don't know what they were thinking with the fucking Blazer gimmick. I don't know if they think they just pulled the plug because it didn't catch on with, like, it was garnered towards kids, obviously, but I don't know why it just kind of, it arrived and it never stood a chance. Like, they didn't even give it a chance because I remember the Blazer jobbing like DiBiase on Saturday Night's Main Event and him not looking very strong either at this time.
Yeah. I mean, for 88, I think it did a job. I think they probably hoped it would sell more merchandise and catch on better than it did, especially with a fan base that was in love with Hulkamania.
Yeah.
It was like, well, this child-friendly masked superstar who, gives the thumbs up and slap the kid's hands. How can that, fail to catch on?
Well, let's just say it flat out because, I mean, people don't a lot because of respect to Owen Hart, but let's say it. It was a bad gimmick. It was lame, and that's why it didn't catch on.
Yeah, and you know what? Through this, he didn't have a lot of interaction with anyone during this match, but quite botchy, Owen Hart.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there was nerves. I think it was his first pay-per-view. Who knows?
I mean, maybe it was nerves. Maybe it was inexperience still, but very different Owen Hart from the one we would know and love later on.
Exactly. The rest of this match was totally predictable. Went down exactly how you pretty much would assume as the Honky Tonk Man getting counted out with Beefcake, which I feel like neither guy got pinned either. That was it smart or was it kind of just like bait and switch? Like, because you always wanted to see the Honky Tonk Man get his ass kicked. But on a payoff match like this, you feel like that's the end of the road. He should truly get his ass kicked. But no, he weasels out again. And lo and behold, the Warrior looking strong as ever, getting the win here, going 1-on-2, defeating Bass, then Greg Valentine in a terrible finish, terrible splash. Did you notice the Warriors' fall attire theme colors, Matt?
I didn't. I was too busy looking in horror at them fucking double axe handles.
Oh.
My God. Did he even hit Ron Bass, or did he just go a mile over his head? Because that minute and a half from Beefcake going to the Warrior winning, that had to be the worst part of this match. It's like everything he did looked absolutely horrendous.
Yeah. Well, it's a typical Warrior match. I mean, let's be honest. We're brutally honest. I know the guy's not with us any longer, but Jesus Christ. Woo.
He sucked. Seriously, like 1988 Ultimate Warrior sucked big time.
And you know what? This match kind of sucked too. It was a disappointing way to kick off this show. The total opposite from what Survivor Series 1 kicked off was Savage's team and Honky's team, because I love that match.
Do you know what? I'm going to disagree with you on this. I actually quite enjoyed this compared to the main event. I thought this had a good pace to it. And, they obviously kept Warrior out of it until the last minute and a half-ish. And I thought it benefited from that. I liked how Greg Valentine worked with the younger stars to sort of put them over before he got rid of them. I don't know whether it's me just like, do you know what, fuck it. But I actually did enjoy this match.
I think for me, if the finish wasn't what it was, I would have liked it a lot more. If that's fair.
I would probably liked it a lot more had it not had Warrior in it, but,
Well, I mean, that's any match again. We're on a roll this week, burying the Warrior who's already buried. The next match, I feel like it's fair to say that this is a case of a match can be the best match on the show, but at the same time still be going way too long as far as time.
Yeah, in case anyone doesn't, this is the 10 teams, or no.
10 man. 10 teams, holy shit.
Can you imagine? Do you know what? It fucking felt like
Yeah, I was going to say it felt like it was 10. No, it was 5-on-5 again. This time, 5 tag teams. The only 2 Survivor Series they did until like 2010 or 11. They brought it back like 1 year. I think they did this crap. You ready? I got to take a deep breath. Can I do it, Matt? Whew.
You can do it.
The Powers of Pain, the Barbarian, the Warlord, the Rockers, Marty Jannetty, Shawn Michaels, British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith, Dynamite Kid, the Hart Foundation, Bret Hart, Jim the Able 9 Hart, and the Young Stallions, Jim Powers and Paul Roma. Fuck, I forgot who the captains and co-captains are. Doesn't matter. Took on Demolition Axe and Smash, the Brainbusters, Tully and Arn, the Bolsheviks, Boris and Nikolai, the Fabulous Rougeau brothers, Jacques and Raymond, the Conquistadors, don't know their names, with and a bunch of managers.
Was it Dawson and Dawson, whatever the fuck it is in Spanish?
Is that them or the Dark Order?
Do you know what? I haven't seen AEW since it began, and I still hate the Dark Order. This match was given 42 minutes and 12 seconds. Got to get that 12 in. And do you know what? It felt every fucking bit of it.
Oh, at first I was getting into it, man, because you had all the teams out there. You had, my God, look at this just Hall of Fame lineup. Some of these teams. On the other end, you got some other questionable talent again, filling up spots. But still, you had the Brainbusters, the Bulldogs, all this shit. And by the way, it was No Shave November, the the originator of No Shave November, Dynamite Kid, being just depressing to watch in this match. It was obviously the Bulldogs one off again, their last match in the company, but at this time he was totally, his body was, he was not the Dynamite Kid anymore. And little fun facts galore in this tag. There's all kinds of drama and bullshit to get into. Okay, this is a year after the Rockers were first hired in '87. Matt then fired for a backstage altercation with Jimmy Jack Funk or something and tore up a bar. Also, the legendary, one of my favorite wrestling stories, the backstage fight, Jacques Rougeau, Dynamite Kid. This was after that. Okay, and those two guys worked each other in this match, and man, was that tense as fuck to watch, Matt. Ooh, yeah, I'm out of breath.
You take a breath, I'll carry on. I was surprised, and I wrote down on my notes, shocked that Vince McMahon greenlit Dynamite Kid to work with both Jacques and Raymond Rougeau after, their dealings backstage and all the stories we've heard, and it was just wow. But you're right. Dynamite was so depressing to watch. It was like watching your granddad, and obviously he didn't look like your granddad, but with that moustache, he did look a lot older than he should have done. It was like watching your granddad, who had been a former, football player in his youth, and he decided to give it one last try before he retired for good. But now only he's 50 odd years old, and he doesn't really have it anymore. And it's just like, is he going to break something?
Yeah. It was like watching your granddad, who was like an ex-Marine and just this badass, and then flash forward trying to watch him carry groceries up his steps. You're like, my God, I just can't do it. This I couldn't have summed it up any better. He looks like Joey Ryan with a mullet in a way too. This match has so much going on in it. There is no way. I plan on reviewing every elimination, every ins and outs of this match. I will say, like I said, it was given way too much time. I don't feel like either. Two things. Of course, the big double switch, the one that nobody talks about. Everybody talks about Brett and Austin. No, I feel like this was the first one, right? With Demolition and the Powers of Pain. They did the double turn.
Yeah.
That and just the heat was put on the wrong teams, especially teams that went the stretch. Final two teams, the Conquistadors, and you got just, you just signed the fucking Horsemen. I mean, fuck them. It just blows my mind, some of the thinking back then, because Vince was so petty and spiteful, and especially signing guys that come from the competition and tried to kill his promotion for years. It was a weird time sometimes back then. But I will say a big standout, probably the best part about this match, you can seriously, just watching this, see Bret Hart coming out story in this match. You can see where the wheels were moving. He stood up beyond anyone in this match every time he was in the ring.
Yeah.
He stole the show.
Yeah, agreed. And do you know what? The Hart Foundation didn't get a great showing as a team.
No.
Even though they were kept in there longer than the Rougeaus, etc. But I defy anyone to watch Bret Hart versus Tully Blanchard during this and not see future WWF champion.
And just the way he was eliminated too was kind of asinine. It made Bret look like an idiot.
Yeah, agreed. But then I mean, a lot of these eliminations were just crap. You know,
Yeah.
they were just really, really bad, and a lot of teams got shafted. I feel like they did the brainbusters dirty here. You know,
These were your prototypical,
obviously,
some of these 1980 style professional wrestling eliminations where an elbow, just a guy laying on the ground, you drop an elbow on him would eliminate a guy, or a suplex would eliminate a guy because there were so many fucking guys and so much going on. One thing they had going for these tag survivor matches, when one guy was eliminated, which we felt to brought up, both guys were eliminated. Thank fucking God, or this would have been the whole pay-per-view probably.
yeah, yeah, agreed. And you know what? This was built towards Demolition versus Powers of Pain, and obviously their ongoing storyline for WrestleMania 5.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, how bad did the Warlord look in this? The Barbarian didn't cover himself in glory, but dear God,
Yeah.
did the Warlord look fucking terrible.
How bad did the Bolsheviks look in this? How bad did the Conquistadors? Well, the Conquistadors, give them credit. Give them credit. They hung in there.
I mean, would you, honestly, if you'd have had the book, right, would you have booked the Conquistadors? I can't even say the fucking name. Would you have booked them two guys in shiny suits to go to the end, or would you in fact have had Fuji cost Demolition the match and have the Powers of Pain pin them in a non-title situation to build them as serious heels for WrestleMania 5?
Well, Matt, the first thing you need to understand is if I had my own promotion and I had the book, the Conquistadors gimmick wouldn't exist anywhere on my card. That's first and foremost. So we wouldn't have to worry about that. Yeah. Jesus Christ. I know Vince smoked pot. There's no way Vince never smoked pot in his life to come up with gimmicks like that,
Yeah.
But no, this was the build. The Powers of Pain were the babyface team, which, I mean, it's always going to be said to the end of time, even though I always kind of preferred Demolition more than the Road Warriors, which I feel like we've talked about before on here. They were kind of a Road Warriors knockoff. They were, flat out. You can't deny that. But then you take it down a rung. You're knockoffs of a knockoff. That's what the Powers of Pain was. And they came in with Baron von Raschke as their manager at first, as the Baron in a weird cloak like a wizard. And they never got over to the level, I feel like, that Demolition did as baby faces, because they were so filtered down because at least Demolition were the first ripoffs.
Yeah. I mean, what else can you say about this match and Demolition and Powers of Pain? It was, I think, looking back on it now, I'm sure I loved this as a kid. I don't remember having any feelings or anything towards this feud, but looking back on it, it's like, what were they thinking? Putting the Powers of Pain in this position, even if it was meant to be like two Road Warrior clones or slash ripoffs going against each other, it was still like, surely you can see the limitations of both teams. I mean, Demolition, don't get me wrong, one of the greatest tag teams ever, but they weren't the greatest in the ring ever.
No, not even close.
Demolition had to have like a Heart Foundation or a Brainbusters in there to really pull it out of them. And so to book a team that they'd have to carry in the Powers of Pain, it was like, come on.
And that's exactly why, like, the one match that them and LOD finally had on, like, Superstars or something, right? That's why it's never really talked about or remembered a lot, because it wasn't good, because there's two big Hoss teams going at it. Just, very rarely does that work.
And you know what? The overriding feeling of this entire tag team match, even though it was good, it had some good moments, the team stood out. The less of the field got cluttered, the more they could do. But the overriding feeling and memory of this match for me is that the double switch didn't get over with the audience. They didn't understand it.
They were confused as shit.
They were cheering Fuji and the Powers of Pain going up the aisle.
I mean, and let's be fair. They're not listening to Gorilla and Jesse. You know what I mean? So, and I totally got that. And at the same time, like, why the fuck did you book it like that then? Because the fans, they don't know.
Exactly. Anyway, I don't know. Fuji doing what he did. And for those listening, he pulled the rope down. Smash went through, even though he was meant to be managing Demolition, and Demolition got counted out. I feel like the fans looked at that more as that's a mistake rather than heel turn.
Right. This poor old man, you dicks. You're going to beat him up. And you're going to come back down after the match because you're sore losers on top of it, which is how they booked to look like also sore losers and beat them up again.
Exactly.
And then they did the babyface celebration at the end, right? And there was just silence. Nobody knew what to do.
That's it. Nobody knew. Well, do we cheer them? Are they faces now? It's like, it would have been so much clearer had it come down to Demolition versus the Pounds of Pain. And I rarely advocate, champions losing on television or pay-per-view for no reason, especially if the title was not on the line. But if it had come down to them two teams and then Fuji had have actively got in the ring and attacked them with his fucking stick and cost them the match, I feel like that would have come over to the audience in attendance better, that this was an actual heel turn and this is who you should be cheering now, and these are the cunts you should be fucking, trying to get out after the show.
And it goes back to the very first podcast I've ever done on this channel, the first podcast I've done with USA to the end of time. The last thing you want to do is confuse your audience. Because the worst thing you can get is dead fucking air. And this was 4 minutes of dead air, this whole ending segment, and it was a wet fart, and it just didn't get over at all. And the only way, I mean, sitting at home, it was all right, I guess. Because I guess in the moment watching this live, it was different because you're not noticing how the live crowd's reacting because you're too busy reacting. But when you go back and watch it 20 years later, it's definitely noticeable. And that was that. And quite frankly, Matt, we're going to take a break. Because one of us has to potty, and that's me. And yes, I said potty, and I'm a grown man. I'm not ashamed, because I'm reviewing Survivor Series 88, not one of my most prideful moments, but we're doing it. When we return, Matt, there's more goodness to come.
Absolutely.
When we come back, Union Smack, stick around. We're going to round it out. Survivor Series 88. We'll be right back.
It is with tremendous honor that we here from Union Smack induct our picks as the greatest legends in the history of British and European wrestling, right here on the Union Smack Hall of Fame, put together by my co-host, the Maniac, Matt Tennant. Stay tuned in the coming weeks for the first batch of inductees right here on the Union Smack Podcast.
We are back, we are settled, we are refreshed, we're ready for part 2 of this pay-per-view, and oh boy, some humdingers left on this one, Matt.
Yes, just a few, but we're strong, Travis, we're strong, we'll get through it.
We're not as strong as a giant. Huh?
Well, do you know what? Judging by this giant, we probably are stronger than him because he looked so frail during this match.
Man, you make it so depressing already about Andre. Like 2 seconds in.
1988, he was fucked.
I will say, one thing we have failed to mention are some of these great backstage promos with all the team members. And this was maybe my favorite one. I don't know why. Where you had Rick Rude calling Harley Race a legend and having a giant on his team. It was just good stuff. For the heel side. The other side, well.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, that was a good promo, but the one that left the biggest impression on me was the Powers of Pain one. And not so much Fuji's pidgin English, but for some reason, the Barbarian doing a Japanese accent.
Mr. Fuji! Yeah, it was weird. Some of that tag one also is that there were so many managers, and it was just a screen filled with so many faces. It was kind of like watching that Land of a Thousand Dances WWF music video from '85.
Yeah.
Your teams. Go ahead, man.
I was just going to say, then again, there was so many managers littered all throughout this pay-per-view. Like, 3 in the main event, was there?
Mm-hmm.
Slick and Heenan and Elizabeth and Frenchie Martin in this one coming up. So
oh boy. Hold on to your butts. This was a time where every single heel match in this era and on the show had a heel manager. Every match had them on this.
Yeah. single match did have them.
Let's
So
let's run through the lineups again, shall we? Deep breaths and all. Co-captains: Andre the Giant, Dino Bravo, with other members, Mr. Perfect, Rick Rude, and Harley Race. Quite the team there, Andre, except for one. Taking on Jake Roberts, Jim Dugan, Ken Patera, Scott Casey, and Tito Santana. Scott Casey, for no reason, kind of thrown into this. I think he had been on like 2 Superstars episodes before this, maybe.
and you know what? I think if you're looking for the most generic wrestler you could possibly find in 1988, Scott Casey wins that award.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck me, when he came on, I looked at him and I was like, but no, it was Scott Casey. So, just generic look, tights. Ugh. Why? Why was Scott Casey included here? There must have been someone else on the roster, Travis.
He kind of looked like Ron Bass's little brother in blue tights.
He did, actually.
I wasn't impressed by a whole hell of a lot in this match, I'll be honest, right out of the gate. Gotta say.
Do you know what? I mean, I'm not going to say I liked it. It wasn't better than the first match. I think I preferred it to the main event just because of the sheer predictability of the main event. But Ken Patera didn't belong in a wrestling ring in 1988.
Harley Race.
Harley Race. Do you know what? I think Harley Race could have still gone if they'd have given him more motivation to do so.
Well, I say that too because this is after he hurt his back in that match with Hogan that made him retire, right, on Saturday night's main event.
I believe it was, yeah. I mean, Rick Rude and Perfect, obviously,
Carried it.
Superstars. Duggan, Jake Roberts. I mean, did Jake Roberts have an injury going into this? Because they saved him for the last 6 or 7 minutes, and I mean, I do honestly, Travis. Like, you know, we're veterans at this now. 30 plus years we've been watching this, and I understand the psychology of, you know, keeping Jake back until last so he can make a hero's entrance and down the giant, etc. But at the same time, it's like, you know what I'm going to say.
I didn't want to do this, but I'm going to do it, and you kind of made me do it. But that's why we do what we do. Every time, especially in this goddamn era where there was a battle royal or a multi-man match, and let's be honest, this was 1988, Jake, right? I guarantee you 100% he was smacked off his fucking tits on that apron hanging out to the very tail end of this match. That's a case of that. Because by this time, his wife Cheryl, who had been brought to be on the road with him, was already taken off the road. There had been some dispute there. He was heavily into substance abuse. This was peak Roberts substance abuse, by the way, late 88, you know. Just... I mean, I hate to say it, man, but Jake knows Jake and we know Jake, and that's probably a case of Jake in this.
And, I mean, I'm going to bring the podcast down a little bit here now. Have you heard the sperm story between him and Rick Rude?
No. And I don't know if I want to.
I mean, you probably don't, I'll be perfectly honest, but I feel like
the listeners now, either way, if you don't say it, they're going to be pissed. So now you got to say it, whether I want to or not.
Okay, so the story goes, and this is from several sources, not just one. When I was working for Wrestle Talk, we were going to write a book about backstage heat, etc. And yeah, there was so many subjects to cover, and I did some research into the one between Jake and Rick Rude, and it turns out, and you know, as far as I know, this is 100% true because this is coming from Pritchard's podcast. This has come from Armpit.
Let's not get carried away with ourselves, Matt. Pritchard.
Not just Pritchard, but like, if you ever visited, I think it's armpitwrestling.com. Like, they have so much on like backstage rules, etc. Story.
Well, thank God Pritchard's not your only source.
So, the story goes that one night at the I think it was end of '87, beginning of '98, Jake Roberts and obviously Rick Rude, when they were in that feud over Cheryl, etc. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Jake Roberts got blown in the front of a rental car, and the woman was going to be one of the people that Rick Rude picked out of the audience because the production staff would pre-pick them for him and tell him who to, go for. And Jake Roberts told her to not get rid of the sperm that he
Oh
was eating.
God, I know.
And when Rick Rude kissed her, and everybody can guess from there.
Jesus goddamn Christ, Matt.
Can you imagine being Rick Rude and just like, dear God?
Rick Rude, I'm surprised he didn't kill him, because Rick Rude, all the stories, he's one of the toughest guys you didn't want to mess with backstage. If he even knew.
How can you not know?
Maybe she just had a lot of saliva built up.
Should we move on?
Yes, let's please move on. Ken Patera was eliminated by Rick Rude. And for 8 minutes into this match, your first elimination. What? Ken Patera, talk about how the mighty have fallen. A year ago, he had that, I don't want to say red hot, but that nice little program where he is fresh out of jail and he's seeking redemption on Bobby Heenan. To this, he was just, hey, I'm Ken Patera.
Yeah. Just another body to fill time. That was what Ken Patera was. And the hair. And again, if anyone looked like a granddad trying to recap his glory years, it was Ken Patera.
Yep.
He had the good body, but from neck upwards, it was granddad territory again.
This match bored the shit out of me. I'm not going to lie. This was zone out to maybe look at my phone a time or two. This was just a lot of punch, kick, rest hold bullshit. Aside from a little bit of Tito and Harley, I feel like tried, even though it was sad to watch. The psychology with Jake and Andre, which is great on like Saturday Night's Main Event they did prior to this to build up, was nowhere to be found because, like we said, Jake was nowhere to be found mentally in this match. You could tell he was just off, and Jake wasn't really showcased anything. He was eliminated by Rick Rude here. He ate a fucking pin. I mean, that's one of the hottest guys in the company. Now, we don't want to kill off the steam of Bad News Brown, but Jake can eat a pin. Maybe Vince knew he was under the influence, and that was his punishment for showing up to work like this. Who knows? Only they know.
Yeah, it could have been, but I think Vince hoped keeping Roberts back would spark the crowd at the end, but the beating he took went on for so long, Travis.
Yeah.
Like, unnecessarily so. And this was a running theme throughout the night. It happened in the 10-man tag. It happened, I think, in the main event, where wrestlers would take such a beating.
Savage.
And you could have finished them off 2 or 3 times, but it just went on needlessly, or for the sake of it.
Do you know what my least favorite spot is in the history of wrestling? And I feel like we've seen it twice on this show, is when the heel's got it in the bag, right? But at the 2 count, he lets him up because he wants to punish him some more. That is the stupidest fucking spot, and I hate it. And it makes anyone that does it look like a Neanderthal heel, not like a cunning, slick heel. You know what I mean? Like, and not one of Slick's guys. That's not what I meant. I meant a slick, cutting, fucking devious heel as opposed to, just pick him up like an idiot. I hate that spot. And I hate that spot more than any other in wrestling.
It was so illogical because Root had him, and would it have taken like a genius to tag in Andre and just let him lay on top of him for the pin?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like,
exactly.
But I will say here, it's like the match wasn't great, but Andre looked fantastic in his last few seconds. It's like he was frail throughout the whole thing, and he was having trouble walking. You could tell his knees were buckling. But then he went all feral on Roberts in the corner, choking him.
Yeah.
And I've never seen Andre look so fucking frightening in all the matches I've seen him.
I think it's a George Steele shoot interview where he said that Andre despised Jake, so that probably helped too.
You could tell it was all in his eyes.
Best part about this match for me, Matt, I don't know about you, and refreshing, is that the young up-and-comer was the Survivor along with Dino Bravo. Undies Kurt Hennig, fresh out of the AWA, in a Survivor Series t-shirt and all, way before he was really Mr. Perfect. He was Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig, getting the pinning Jake Roberts to win the match.
I agree, and I think that did him, the world of good to pin a established name like Jake Roberts. I mean, I know it was fresh off Andre mauling, etc., but we all know what Kurt Hennig will go on to do in WWF and professional wrestling. And can I just say though, you mentioned the Survivor Series shirts. How much did Vince want to sell those shirts on the night. He had someone in the first fucking match wear it to the ring. He had Henning wear it. He had Harley Race wear it. 2 men in the same fucking match weren't allowed to wear their normal attire. Had to come down in Survivor Series shirts.
And you know Brunzell was rocking that shit.
That's the one, Bronzell.
There you go. It's pretty bad when you got to get Harley Race to sell your merch. It wasn't a great shirt either. It kind of just looked like a Strike Force shirt, just with it was Survivor Series instead.
Yeah.
Even though I kind of love the
you know
Strike
what?
Force shirt. So maybe it is an awesome shirt. Maybe I need it now.
If you could ever find it. I'll just say also on this match, like Dino Bravo was one of the sole survivors, but for the beating Jake took, I think he probably should have eliminated everyone other than Kurt Hennig.
It made no sense for Dino to still be there because he was Dino Bravo. You know, it's not like, I don't know. It's not like it was the other co-captain. One of the co-captains, at least. None of the co-captains survived, so. Let's get down to main event time here, Matt. Before we do this promo with Hogan's team, simply talk a little bit off air, and we'll do it now for the listeners and the goodness. We got an aerial assault, man. We got a mountain man, Jack. We got the strongest man in the world, dude, and we got the mega powers. One of my favorite Hogan promos, because he, say what it is, Hogan's team is so weak, and it sucks, and it's a bunch of job guys, flat out, okay? But he goes out of his way to get every member of his team over in that promo, and I feel like that's why I appreciate it. And because I feel like he did. Because after listening to this, you really think that, man, that Coco bewares the shit.
Yeah, the shit. And then the match starts, and you take the off the beginning.
And you make it a plural.
And you realise it's just shit.
The shits. Yeah. He wasn't the shits. I feel like he was never going to be a top guy. Like, he could go. He was Coco. He was a high flyer.
Yeah. I mean, he was Coco everywhere. What else can you say? He was decent lower card guy, maybe, in his heyday. In WWF, he was just a cartoon character with a bird. That was it.
This was the start of the angle that eventually made the Mega Power split up. This was co-captains Akimi the Big Boss Man, along with Haku the Red Rooster, and Ted DiBiase. Now, a lot of people may be confused. The Red Rooster, I thought he was a cartoon the kid gimmick. No. If you go back to the origins of Terry Taylor in the WWF, Matt, it'll start a little bit different.
Yes, yeah, it did. Were you a fan of the Red Rooster, by the way?
I was going to say, I feel like I'm way more excited to talk about the history of the Rooster than you are right now.
I mean, you know, Terry Taylor was... I feel like Terry Taylor was a decent wrestler, you know, when he had the reigns with... I forgot his name. I've gone blank in the middle of the podcast.
Mid-South?
Yeah, carry on talking and I'll think of the fucking...
Well, really, it started in as just Bobby Heenan, his protege, to bring in. And the thing is, the joke was Terry Taylor kept losing, or he had trouble beating job guys on Superstars, and there would always be Bobby Heenan critique him on the outside. And finally, this all paid off on an episode of Primetime Wrestling where Bobby Heenan's real guy, the Brooklyn fucking Brawler, came out and beat up the Rooster, turning them babyface. This was like maybe 2 weeks before that happened, this match right here. This was still full force heel. God, it's so hard to say this without laughing. Full force heel Red Rooster right here with Bobby Heenan, Matt. Taking on the Mega Powers. My God, does it get any hotter at the time? Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, along with Coco Beware, Hillbilly Jim Hercules. Yep.
You sounded so depressed to say that.
I mean, Jesus Christ, you couldn't shuffle the deck a little bit here on this show. I mean, God, did it have to be so obvious that it was just going to be the Mega Power surviving in this match?
Well, that's what I meant earlier by predictability. It's like, you knew they were going to win. Like, Hogan was never going to be pinned by anyone. You know, it was very doubtful they were going to pin Savage. So, if there was going to be a surprise here, then they'd both either get counted out or disqualified or some fucking ridiculousness. But can I just stop you there, Travis? Chris Adams is the name I thought.
Oh, there you go. Because you did your little homework for the Hall of Fame. Me too.
Yes, I did. And you know what? I knew we'd done it for the Hall of Fame, and we've only done 3 so far. And I thought it definitely wasn't the Bulldog. So it was either Chris Adams or Adrian Adonis.
I didn't like
Adonis, Adrian Street.
There you go.
Sorry.
I'm like you. I didn't like this match either. I thought this was very showmanship style. Obviously, it was Hogan in the 80s, but this was just a bunch of gaga, we know what's going to happen, which made it fucking predictable and boring for me. No real standouts, and it's weird, especially in 1988, that Teddy DiBiase was on the team and he wasn't a captain, even at a time where they had co-captains. Just wasn't a captain. He was just there.
Nope. And you know what? This was blasé, but it had 3 stories running through it. You know, that we were talking off air. It had DiBiase and Hercules. This had the Twin Towers versus the Mega Powers, and obviously the continuation of Savage slowly, beginning to turn on Hogan with all the jealousy, etc. You could probably add to that 4th with the beginning of the Red Rooster, leaving the Heenan family.
Right. Yeah, this was the seeds planted for Terry Taylor's babyface run that went down in history. No. And I think the best part of this match is what happened after. If you pay attention close enough, you get some really good psychology from Randy Savage. You can seriously see this angle starting where he sees like Hogan hug Elizabeth, right? And just that look. There's so much said in just a look with Randy Savage there. Masterful.
And even when she's raising her hand, he's like, he doesn't take his eyes off Hogan hardly ever, and it's just like, what the fuck is going on
and
here?
Even as a child, Matt, watching that, I feel like that's credit to how good he did that. Even as a kid, way before the internet, kayfabe, any of that shit I knew about, I knew that it was coming. You knew.
Yeah. And this is so well done. Like we said earlier, it's like very slowly drawn out over a year, and it wasn't rushed. It was perfectly timed as well, and they took a real chance with it. Like when Savage, did he hold Elizabeth across the room in a way? Did he not?
Yeah.
And it was just like, holy fuck! I knew it was coming, but I didn't expect it to be this good.
It's one of those times again where we talk about predictability can be a good thing in wrestling sometimes, and that payoff and just that build to that angle, we knew it was coming, but it was great, and that slow burn made it every that much bit better when it finally happened. And it's probably to this day my top 3 angles in the history of that company. That one's fueled on nostalgia more than probably my other 2 candidates, but still, it deserves to be in there for me for what it did for me as a wrestling fan at such a young age, flat out.
Yeah, I agree.
For what this show did for me, I don't know about you, but it's time. Let's get our little books out, get our chalk, get up to the chalkboard, get our little Dean hats on like Shane Douglas. What do you grade Survivor Series 88, Matt?
I'm going to give it a strong B. Simply because there was something in every match, like either a story or, showcasing an up-and-comer like Kurt Hennig. And I feel like that the tag team match went on forever. Like I grew another fucking beard during it.
Yeah.
But it was still the best match on the card. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a strong B. Obviously the Mega Powers thing helped, but I thoroughly recommend it. Do watch it if you haven't. It's Survivor Series season, and
you could do worse.
Get nostalgic.
No. And sorry to our listeners. I know it's taken literally 3.5 years for this episode to come out, but that's how long it took for us to watch that tag match to review it. 3 years later, we're back. Surprise. We both have bigger fam. Matt has a smorgasbord of just side businesses going on, and he's an entrepreneur, and so much has happened in 3 years.
That's it.
You know what? Maybe you can disagree with me. I'm gonna give it a C+. I feel like a lot of it was set up. It could have been good, but 3/4 of the show is a disappointment for me, and I feel like the second half of the show just shit the bed flat out for me personally. Just watching it, going back, I don't know. It squandered potential. What could have been with this roster? It needed the deck shuffled again. I hate to be a broken record and say that, but that's just poorly put together teams here, and I appreciated it more, like you said at the top of the show, where I love it. I think they started the next year at 89 where they started name like the Visionaries versus the Vipers. I love that shit. So it was lacking that.
Roddy's Rowdies.
Roddy's goddamn fucking Rowdies. Yeah, all of it. My friend, Christmas is coming soon. This is it's good to do this with you as always. This was a good one, a damn good one. Finally glad to check off Survivor Series from the list. One more time before we get out of here. Where can everyone catch you? Our store, all that goodness.
You can catch me on Twitter at The Perfect Tenant. You can catch me back on this channel with Tenant Talks, issue 4 coming some point before the end of the month, Travis. I've got a kernel of news, but I'm waiting for more. You can catch the Union Smack Hall of Fame with Travis inducting Fit Finley.
It's
That will
coming
be before Christmas. We're both big people. And you can buy our official merchandise, the Union Smack shirt, Hibiki TMD shirt, Reset Button shirt, Tenant Talk shirt, Union Smack Hall of Fame shirt from our online shop, unionsmack.bigcartel.com. And, hopefully before the end of the year or early 2020, you'll be able to buy my next book, NXT UK Year 1. It's taken a bit of time to edit, but, my company are working me to death, so not much I can do.
Amen. And you know what? There's actually relevancy in buying a Reset Button shirt again, because if you've been paying attention, we're back. It's good to be back with Tan, and glad to have that going again. Like Matt said, check us out over there at the merch store. Get all the goodness. Winter's coming. Hopefully some new winter apparel. Maybe some brand new show t-shirts. Hint, hint, wink, wink. From some alternative programming. Who knows? Until then, on Twitter at the Hibiki TMD. It's Survivor Series season. Get in the mood. Settle down. Round up the troops. We did it right here. Union Smack. Until then, cheerio.